So let me give you some examples. If we dig into tips, what you do is you maybe create a series of tips. Let's say we do a 25-day campaign. We do a tip per day, and each of the tips basically we'll pre-build the tips. We'll give them the text. You can see on the right-hand side an example of one. So we'll give them the text, maybe even imagery, and say, this is what you need to do, and it'll be copy-paste exercise for some leader in the organization. So what we want is immediately, if we have 25 tips, we could have 25 distinct people in the organization helping drive this campaign. They don't need to build the campaign. They don't even need to build the tips. They literally can just consume what we're giving them and then on the appropriate day publish. So all you're managing is a schedule, and all you're managing is how do we want the weeks to be themed, because of course each of these people that are sharing tips, you have to think about, again, take it further. How are they actually going to do this? So maybe we have a center of excellence site, a knowledge hub, think of something like that, and they're going to communicate these tips on that knowledge hub daily. And then once a week, we'll do one post on the intranet or at a organizational level that says, here's, discovering information at XYZ, at To Lead. Here's what we've learned, and here's the 5 tips, and by the way, here's the challenges that you should do. And if you do these challenges, what's more is when you do them and you post about them in Yammer using this topic or hashtag, you have a chance to win, etc. And here's the winners from last week. So what you're doing is you're sending one either email message or a intranet post or whatever it is once per week, and then you're doing all these other ones throughout the week. And what this does is it creates a funnel effect, right? Because in week 2 or 3, a person who finally hears about it or says, I'm going to take a glance at this, goes, wow, they've been doing this for a while. There's all sorts of stuff for me to read and understand. And they start to get pulled into that funnel process. And they start to see things like, oh, there's training coming up on week 3 that I can take part in. Great, I'm going to sign up for that training. And again, we can increase the registrations for training, and we can make sure that we follow up with those who were trained and target better guidance and follow-ups and coaching and things like that. So tips, while they may seem really simple, they're really important not just to note, hey, we're going to do a bunch of tips, but to really do the pre-work of saying, what are those tips going to be, and define them for the entirety of the campaign. And this is doable if your campaign's only 25 days. That's 25 tips. Or it could be, 10 tips across 25 days. I'm not saying you have to have a tip per day, right? So you define that. But definitely think of it at that kind of tactical level, and think of who's going to communicate this tip, right? Don't have it all come from 1 or 2 leaders. Have it come from different people every day, and there's no downside to that, right? Now we get more people involved, we get more visibility in a variety of places. Let me give you another example. Those challenges that I mentioned, these are really important because remember, there's a group of people that just want to know, what should I do different? I mentioned earlier this idea of, hey, you can add OneNote to a recurring meeting. That is a specific thing that they could do. You're saying there's a tip, which is, OneNote's awesome, here's how it works, etc. But the reality is that the big thing here that you're trying to push is just do this one thing. And if you do this, you'll automatically start to use OneDrive, maybe for where the storage for the meeting notes are, or at least a SharePoint team site where appropriate. And you'll now be effectively taking better notes during meetings, and more people will be able to take part, and so on and so forth. So we're improving the way meetings are managed, or meetings in general, in that one way. And then there's tons of other ways. You can see a bunch of examples here. So again, the slides will be available to you. So there's lots of ways that we can challenge people. Theme it. I will tell you, we've found that if you're doing lots of tips, you definitely want to theme them and coordinate them. You don't want to just have random tips because it'll feel disjointed. But if you do that effectively, it'll actually translate really well into the training, which we'll get into.